Hi everybody, welcome back to Business Strategy 450, Week 4. Believe it or not, we're already a month into school. Hopefully things have been going relatively well for you, and hopefully you've been surviving the snow, and then the snow, and then the snow again. It's been a long winter. Hopefully we'll see some warmth soon. Let's go over the agenda for this week. First, I'm going to spend a little time talking about what you should be doing in terms of the workload for a virtual course like this, an online course. I know that a few people have had some trouble navigating and managing the course in terms of workload, so I want to try to set some parameters so that you know what to do. I've already spent some time with some people on the phone and in email exchanges talking a bit about this, but I think it would be helpful if you kind of realized as a group what you need to do, and in case some of you were uncomfortable with reaching out to me, I figured this would be a useful exercise to kind of walk through expectations one more time. I'm going to do a quick team project follow-up and discuss with you what you should be doing in terms of next steps on the team project. And then we're going to get into the primary topic for the day, which is business level strategy. We're going to talk about defining business level strategy, the relationship between customers and strategy, and particularly business level strategy, the purpose of a business level strategy, types of business level strategies that you might incorporate, the competitive risks associated with different business level strategies, and finally, we're going to talk a little bit about essentially a debate that I'm going to be setting up, which I think is a critical debate for this course, which is Porter's 5 Forces, which I'm using essentially as a proxy for the sort of strategic orthodoxy of the last 25 years versus Blue Ocean strategy, which is a new and I think substantially more refined way to look at strategy, which focuses on innovation in a way that I think that particularly Michael Porter has failed to do. He might disagree, but I think that the Blue Ocean strategy, which we're going to talk briefly about in the lecture today, and then it's going to be a critical component of the work that you'll be doing in the coming week out on B-Strat 450 network. But we're going to talk a little bit about the sort of compare and contrast between a sort of competitively oriented strategy per Porter's 5 Forces and what I would call is an innovation and customer-oriented approach that is defined in Blue Ocean strategy, which we will talk about. Let's start off with the workload for a virtual course. There's really 2 major areas of work in a virtual classroom context, which are identical to a traditional class setting. The key is figuring out how you divide those up and make sure that you're working in the right ways, working efficiently, getting what you need to get done without killing yourself. And so first, think about your in-class attendance in a traditional class as the equivalent of that in this class is your participation and the lectures. So view the lectures and the videos. Clearly that's the closest thing we have to a classroom per se. The lectures, and every week I will try to do about an hour, give or take a little. I can never guarantee exactly how much it'll break out, but I will typically try to keep the lecture slides to about an hour long. Videos, which include the videos in B-Strat 450 and the videos that are in Cengage now, and when I say B-Strat 450, I mean either in the network or out in the YouTube channel. Those videos should typically total about 30 minutes. In my mind, the videos plus the lectures will always be about an hour and a half, give or take, and that should leave you, by definition, an hour and a half or so to participate in the discussion forums. And as I promised last week and going forward, and you'll see this week, there will always be only 2 discussion forums, one in Manhattan, which will typically be more textbook specific, and one in B-Strat 450 network, which will typically be a topic that's more expansive. This week, that's the forum that I'm using to talk about the Blue Ocean strategies. Because I think Blue Ocean strategies are important this week, I would probably divide my work up with about an hour this week dedicated to B-Strap 450 and about 30 minutes to the Manhattan discussion thread. That's not always going to be the case, but this week I think the hour and a half divides a little bit more heavily toward B-Strap 450 network. In other weeks, it's probably going to be about 45 minutes for one and 45 minutes for the other. What does that mean? It means that fundamentally you should be revisiting those sites regularly and posting comments regularly. And the time that you commit to revisiting those sites in total should be about an hour and a half of your week. That means that any single posting doesn't have to be pages and pages long, and I think you've all been getting pretty good at that. It's a few sentences to a paragraph tops, one that's, however, thoughtful and responsive to some of the other comments that people made, or if I've posed a new question along the way, that are responsive to the questions that I've posed along the way. But essentially, they're written versions of the kind of participation you would have in a classroom. All of that, so the hour and a half of lectures and videos plus the hour and a half of participation in the discussion forums, comes to about 3 hours in a week. That's the equivalent of class attendance for a 3-credit course. So you should, as a general rule, expect that all of this equals about 3 hours. If it's a whole lot more than that, then you're spending too much most likely on the discussion forums. If it's a whole lot less than that, then you're probably not spending enough time on the discussion forums. And it will show in both the thoughtfulness and frequency of your participation. The second half of a virtual classroom environment is what I call the out-of-class work. This is the same as the out-of-class work that you would have if this were a live class. That's the readings and assignments. Now, readings include the textbook, obviously, plus my blog in B-Strap 450 Network, plus any other suggested readings. This week, the blog sends you off to some other reading resources, and so you have to do all of those, and those will be the readings for the week. In addition, out-of-class work includes all of your assignments. So when you're working on periodic chapter assignments, or the written case and analysis and video discussion, which will be coming up in a few weeks, or your team project, those are the assignments that are the out-of-class work that supplement your reading in the textbook. And your time commitment to the readings and the combined assignments should be similar to the weekly commitment you would make to any other 3-credit course, which my understanding is, and I think this is reasonable, is that 2 to 4 hours per credit hour is generally an expectation. So 2 times 3 is 6, so you're looking at somewhere between 6 and 4 times 3 is 12, between 6 and 12 hours per week that you would commit to this course, in addition to the 3 hours that you should be committing to in-class attendance. Hopefully this framework gives you a clearer picture of expectations. I don't think I'm saying anything that's sort of out of line with what you would expect. If this were an in-class attendance class, we would, by definition, be working around similar parameters. But hopefully this gives you a sense of how to allocate your time and be as efficient as possible to get the best results possible. If you have questions about this, certainly let me know. Send me an email or give me a call, and we can discuss it further. Let's talk a little bit about the team projects now. Hopefully by now you realize that I've posted on January 31st the team member assignments and case assignments. It's a spreadsheet that's posted in Manhattan in the handout section. It's an Excel sheet that gives you both your team member names and your case assignments, just so that you're aware. One person has actually dropped the class recently. If anyone else does, I may need to do a little bit of reallocating of teams. I want all teams to be at least 3 people. So if someone departs and we're down to a 2-person team, I may need to do a little bit of shifting. But right now, assume that those case and team assignments are as they are posted. By now, you should have also contacted one another. You should at least introduce yourselves and meet as a team ASAP. That can be in person or virtually. You should review the project team guidelines, which I've posted in the handout section of Manhattan, and you should prepare the team expectations agreement, which is also described in the project team guidelines. That team expectation agreement should be agreed upon by all of you, so you need to share it amongst yourselves, make sure that it reflects the shared view of the team. and then you need to submit the agreed upon document in Manhattan by February 6th at 10 p.m. I wanted to share with you a couple of ideas around communications and collaboration tools. I know I got one email from someone who was wondering how, if I'm in New York City, would I be able to work in a team environment. Because this is an online class, I've presumed online collaboration. That doesn't mean you can't meet in person, and in fact, if you're able to, it might be easier. But to the extent that you want to use online collaboration tools, here are some suggestions. First, obviously, Manhattan has the team discussions. That's asynchronous and sort of chat-like. It's probably not the optimal way to communicate, but it's certainly an option available to you. You also have the post office, which is really just email, but it certainly gives you another tool for communication. In addition, in BStrap 450 network, I've integrated two sets of tools, which I've discussed before, the TalkBox video conference feature, which I think is probably going to be the one that will be most helpful to you as groups. You can set up your own video conference calls and work through projects together. There's also the Huddle Workspace, which is a forum for you to be able to share different versions of projects along the way. I know that has a somewhat limited memory capacity, and if you're getting pretty sophisticated, it may not work perfectly. But hopefully it's a place that you can do some of your preliminary sharing of documents. Some other possible tools which I've not integrated but are out there are things like Skype, which also could be used for video conferencing, I understand, I think, and although I think as a general rule it's not a great video conferencing tool, but it's there. There's some other video conferencing tools online as well. There's also Google Docs, which you may be more familiar with than Huddle Workspace. They're similar tools, and Google Docs is as good a resource as any to share documents and versions of projects along the way. But these are all tools that you can kind of look at and consider as you think about how you're going to interact as a team. The important point here is that you as a team need to agree on what tools you're going to use. I would actually probably want to include that in the team guidelines, because you don't want one person kind of working in a different format with different expectations so that communications gets bogged down.